a small loom company born in the quiet corners of Japan's Industrial Revolution, had no obvious path to global dominance. Yet through relentless innovation, calculated risks, and a deep commitment to quality, it grew into the most profitable automaker in the world. This is the story of how a business that once specialized in textile machinery transformed itself into a global leader in transportation, outpacing industry giants and reshaping the way cars are made. From its humble beginnings, the company faced struggles that tested its resilience. It entered the automobile industry as an underdog, competing against established American and European manufacturers with decades of experience. It survived war, economic hardship, and market skepticism. Through continuous learning and adaptation, it pioneered a revolutionary production system that would not only define its success, but also set new standards for the entire industry. In the early years of the 20th century, Japan was undergoing a period of industrial and economic transformation. It was a time when traditional methods of craftsmanship were beginning to merge with modern machinery. In this changing landscape, a man with a simple yet powerful vision set out to create something that would not only change his life, but would eventually reshape an entire industry. The story begins with Sakichi Toyoda, a man born into a humble carpenter's family in the late 19th century. His father was a skilled artisan who worked with wood, but Sakichi was drawn to something different. He was fascinated by machines and how they could make life easier for people. In the small rural town where he lived, weaving was a major part of everyday life. It was a labor-intensive process, primarily done by hand, and he saw firsthand how difficult and slow it was for workers to produce cloth. The sight of his mother and other women spending long hours at the loom, struggling with inefficient tools, left a deep impression on him. Sakichi was not a businessman by birth. He was not wealthy or highly educated, but he had an insatiable curiosity and a desire to solve problems. His mind constantly worked on ways to improve the looms used for weaving. He did not accept inefficiency as an unchangeable fact of life. Instead, he asked himself a simple yet revolutionary question. What if there was a way to make weaving faster and easier without sacrificing quality? Without formal training in engineering, he began studying looms in detail. He observed their movement, their weak points, and the small inefficiencies that slowed down production. He experimented tirelessly, often working with his own hands to build prototypes. The road was not easy. He faced repeated failures, financial difficulties, and skepticism from those around him. Many people saw his efforts as a waste of time. Why change something that had worked for generations? But he refused to give up. Each failure only brought him closer to a breakthrough. After years of relentless effort, he invented the wooden hand loom that significantly increased efficiency. This was a major step forward, but he was not satisfied. He continued innovating until he developed the world's first automatic loom, a machine that could stop itself when a thread broke. This invention revolutionized the textile industry because it drastically reduced waste and improved productivity. For the first time, a loom could think for itself in a way, preventing errors before they caused defects in the fabric. What made Sakichi's approach unique was his deep belief in continuous improvement. He did not see innovation as a one-time achievement, but as an ongoing process. He instilled this mindset in his work and later in the company he built. He understood that success was not about chasing big breakthroughs, but about making small, consistent improvements over time. His automatic loom became a commercial success and attracted the attention of global textile manufacturers. Eventually, he sold the patent to a British company, which provided him with the capital needed to take his vision further. This sale was not just a financial transaction, it was a strategic decision. Instead of focusing solely on textiles, he and his son Kiichiro Toyoda began looking at a new industry that was just beginning to take shape in Japan: automobiles. Though Sakichi Toyoda did not live to see the full impact of his work, his vision laid the foundation for what would become one of the most powerful automotive companies in the world. His story is not just about a man who invented a better loom. It is about the mindset of innovation, resilience, and an unwavering belief that every problem has a solution waiting to be discovered. In the quiet corners of Japan's Industrial Revolution, one company was steadily changing the way textiles were produced. What had once been a slow, labor-intensive process was about to be transformed forever. The loom company founded by Sakichi Toyoda was not just another manufacturer. It was a company driven by the idea that every problem had a solution and every solution could be improved. This belief, embedded in its foundation, would guide its journey far beyond textiles. The revolution in loom technology did not happen overnight. It began with careful observation and a deep understanding of the challenges faced by textile workers. Traditional looms required constant attention. If a thread broke, production would continue without interruption, leading to defective fabric that had to be discarded. This waste was costly, and the rework process slowed everything down. Sakichi Toyoda saw this problem not as an inevitable part of the industry, but as something that could be solved. His answer came in the form of a loom that could detect a broken thread and stop automatically. This invention might seem simple today, but at the time, it was revolutionary. It changed the way people thought about machines. Instead of requiring constant human supervision, the loom could now assist the worker, reducing waste and improving efficiency. This approach of designing machines that could anticipate problems rather than merely react to them became a defining characteristic of the company's philosophy. But the true transformation was not just in the technology itself. It was in the way problems were approached. The company did not settle for one breakthrough and move on. It believed in continuous refinement. Every improvement led to another question. Could this be made even better? Could waste be reduced further? Could productivity be increased without overburdening workers? This thinking process became a core part of the company's DNA. Over time, this philosophy took on a name: Kaizen. The word itself means continuous improvement, but it was more than just an idea. It was a way of working. It meant that every worker, from the factory floor to the executive office, was responsible for finding ways to make things better. It was not about dramatic changes, but about small, steady improvements. If a process could be made just 1% more efficient today and another 1% tomorrow over time, the results would be extraordinary. These early business lessons shaped the company's future in ways that even its founder could not have imagined. Efficiency was never about cutting corners. It was about finding better ways to achieve the same goal. Reliability was not just a selling point. It was a necessity. Quality was not an added feature. It was the foundation of everything the company produced. These principles, learned from making looms, would later become the backbone of the company's approach to making cars. When the company eventually shifted from textiles to automobiles, it did not abandon the lessons of the past. Instead, it applied the same problem-solving mindset to an entirely new industry. Just as it had once redefined textile manufacturing, it would go on to redefine automobile production. The ability to see inefficiencies, the commitment to continuous improvement, and the belief that even the smallest refinements could lead to massive changes remained at the heart of everything it did. What began as a small loom company had already set itself apart by doing something different. It did not just build machines, it built a system of thinking, a way of working that would influence industries far beyond textiles. This relentless pursuit of improvement would soon take the company into an entirely new world, one where its problem-solving philosophy would be tested on a much larger stage. The decision to move from making looms to building automobiles was not an obvious one. For decades, the company had focused on perfecting textile machinery, revolutionizing the industry with innovations that made weaving more efficient. It had built a reputation for quality and problem-solving, but the world was changing. Japan was entering a new era, and with it came new challenges. Among them was the growing need for reliable, domestically produced automobiles. The roads were beginning to fill with foreign-made cars, and Japan had little to offer in response. It was in this environment that Kiichiro Toyoda, the son of the company's founder, saw an opportunity that few others dared to pursue. Kiichiro Toyoda was deeply influenced by his father's spirit of innovation. He had grown up watching machines evolve, learning that technology was never static and that improvement was always possible. But automobiles were an entirely different challenge. Unlike looms, which the company had mastered over decades, cars were complex machines with thousands of moving parts. They required a deep understanding of engineering, metallurgy, fuel efficiency, and durability. Japan had little experience in this field. The country's infrastructure was not designed to support a large automobile industry, and nearly all the knowledge about car manufacturing was held by American and European companies that had been building cars for decades. Despite these challenges, Kiichiro Toyoda was convinced that Japan needed its own automobile industry. He believed that depending on foreign imports was not a sustainable option, and that Japan had the capability to produce cars that were just as reliable, if not better, than those made overseas. But his vision was met with skepticism from nearly everyone around him. Investors were hesitant. Industry experts doubted that a company known for textile machinery could successfully enter such a different market. Even within the company, there was uncertainty. Shifting resources from a stable and profitable business into a risky and unknown venture seemed reckless to many. Kiichiro was not discouraged. He studied how American car manufacturers operated, particularly Ford, which had pioneered mass production techniques. He traveled to the United States to observe their assembly lines, learning everything he could about the process. He returned with ideas, but turning them into reality was a different challenge. The company lacked the specialized knowledge needed to build engines, transmissions, and durable vehicle frames. Every step was a learning experience. The first attempt at making a car was filled with obstacles. The company had to develop entirely new production techniques. Engineers had to be trained in automobile design, and suppliers capable of producing quality automotive parts had to be found. Many early prototypes were failures. They were too heavy, too slow, or unreliable. But Kiichiro refused to give up. Each failure was seen not as a defeat but as a lesson. Slowly the team improved their designs, learning through trial and error. Despite these efforts, skepticism remained. The Japanese government, which had supported industrial growth in other sectors, was not fully convinced that a local car manufacturer could compete with foreign brands. Many believed that Japan's best option was to continue importing cars rather than trying to build them. But Kiichiro persisted. He argued that an independent automobile industry was necessary for Japan's economic strength and technological growth. Eventually, after years of struggle, the company produced its first passenger car. It was not perfect, but it was proof that the dream was possible. More refinements followed, and the company's engineers became more confident in their abilities. The transition from a loom company to an automobile manufacturer was one of the most difficult transformations in industrial history, but it was also one of the most significant. Kiichiro Toyoda's decision to push forward despite the doubts and obstacles laid the foundation for something far greater than anyone had imagined. What started as an uncertain experiment would soon evolve into a company that would challenge the biggest names in the global automobile industry. The leap into automobiles was not just a shift in production, it was a statement that innovation had no boundaries, that expertise in one field could be transformed into success in another, and that persistence in the face of skepticism could lead to extraordinary achievements. When the company first decided to build automobiles, it had no prior experience in car manufacturing. It had spent decades perfecting textile looms. But cars were an entirely different challenge. Unlike looms, which were stationary machines with a single function, automobiles were complex moving systems with thousands of interconnected parts. They needed to be durable, reliable, and efficient under various road conditions. This required engineering knowledge that the company did not yet have. The man leading this transformation, Kiichiro Toyoda, understood that the company could not simply start building cars from scratch. He and his team needed to study how existing automakers operated. He traveled to the United States, where companies like Ford and General Motors had already perfected mass production techniques. He observed their assembly lines, studied their engine designs, and analyzed how they made cars affordable while maintaining quality. These lessons were invaluable, but Kiichiro did not want to simply copy what others had done. He believed that Japan needed its own approach to car manufacturing, one that would fit the country's unique economic and industrial conditions. The company's first prototype was not a finished car, but a learning experiment. Engineers worked tirelessly, testing different materials, engine designs, and body structures. At first, they faced serious difficulties. Some parts were too heavy, while others were not strong enough to withstand the wear and tear of daily use. Japan did not have an established supply chain for automobile components, which meant that even sourcing materials was a challenge. Every problem had to be solved from the ground up. After many months of trial and error, the company completed its first working prototype. It was a small passenger car, built with a simple but functional design. There was excitement among the engineers who had worked so hard to make it a reality, but there was also uncertainty. Would it perform well on the road? Would it be reliable? These questions could only be answered through testing. When the prototype was finally tested, the results were disappointing. The car was slow, and the engine was not powerful enough for long-distance travel. It struggled on rough roads, and some parts wore out too quickly. These failures could have been discouraging, but instead of giving up, the company treated them as valuable lessons. Every weakness in the design was an opportunity to improve. Engineers analyzed every issue, made changes, and refined their approach. The biggest setback came when the company was on the verge of launching its first mass-produced vehicle. Due to financial strain and technical difficulties, the project nearly collapsed. The company was not yet profitable in the automobile business, and there were doubts about whether it should continue. Kiichiro Toyoda made the difficult decision to temporarily halt production, allowing the team to focus on fixing the fundamental flaws in the design. This was a painful but necessary step. Instead of rushing an incomplete product to market, the company chose to perfect its process first. This decision proved to be the turning point. By taking the time to learn from mistakes and refine their methods, the engineers eventually developed a more reliable and efficient vehicle. The setbacks had given them the knowledge they needed to create something that could compete with foreign manufacturers. When the company finally launched its first commercially viable car, it marked the beginning of a new era. The lessons learned from those early struggles became the foundation for a manufacturing philosophy that would later set the company apart from every other automaker in the world. The company had begun its journey into automobile manufacturing with great ambition, but the world around it was changing in ways no one could have predicted. Japan was heading toward one of the most devastating periods in its history, and the company was about to face challenges far greater than technical setbacks or financial struggles. The outbreak of World War II would test its resilience, forcing it to adapt to circumstances beyond its control. When the war began, Japan's industries were redirected toward military production. The company, like many others, had no choice but to shift its focus away from commercial products. Instead of developing passenger cars, it was tasked with producing military vehicles and equipment. This shift disrupted its early efforts to establish itself as an automobile manufacturer. Resources became scarce, and innovation took a back seat to immediate wartime demands. Factories were repurposed, and many engineers and workers were sent to serve in the military. As the war intensified, supply chains collapsed, and the materials needed for vehicle production became increasingly difficult to obtain. By the time the war ended, Japan was in ruins. Cities had been destroyed, infrastructure was in shambles, and the economy was on the verge of collapse. The company itself had suffered enormous losses. Factories had been damaged, production had come to a halt, and there was little demand for automobiles in a country struggling to rebuild. The immediate challenge was survival. There was no guarantee that the company would recover, and like many businesses, it faced the possibility of shutting down permanently. Despite these overwhelming difficulties, the company did not give up. Instead of waiting for conditions to improve, it looked for ways to adapt. There was no market for cars, but there was a desperate need for basic transportation. Recognizing this, the company began producing simple vehicles that could be used for deliveries and reconstruction efforts. These vehicles were not designed for luxury or speed. They were built for practicality and reliability. Every decision was made with efficiency in mind, as the company had limited resources and could not afford to waste materials. As Japan's economy slowly began to recover, the company saw an opportunity to contribute to the nation's rebuilding efforts. The country needed industries that could provide jobs, drive economic growth, and help restore stability. The company's leaders understood that the future of automobile manufacturing depended on more than just making cars. It required an entirely new way of thinking about production. This period of hardship led to one of the most important shifts in the company's history. Instead of focusing solely on making cars, it turned its attention to improving how they were made. Mass production was not a new concept. American car makers had already perfected assembly line techniques, but the company believed there was a better way. It introduced a system that prioritized efficiency, reduced waste, and ensured that every vehicle met the highest standards of reliability. This approach would later become known as the Toyota production system, a method that would revolutionize not just automobile manufacturing, but industries across the world. Through these years of struggle, the company learned that survival was not just about adapting to change. It was about using challenges as opportunities for growth. The lessons learned during this difficult time shaped the company's identity, reinforcing its commitment to quality, efficiency, and continuous improvement. What had once been a small loom company had not only survived a war and an economic collapse, but had emerged with a clear vision for the future. It was no longer just about making cars. It was about making them better than anyone else in the world. After years of struggle and rebuilding, the company had survived the war and economic collapse. But simply making cars was not enough. The real challenge was to make them better, faster, and more efficiently than anyone else. Resources were limited, and competition was growing. Western car manufacturers had already mastered mass production, relying on massive factories and high output to dominate the market. The company knew that competing directly with these giants would be nearly impossible. Instead of copying their methods, it needed a completely new way to build cars. This need for innovation led to the creation of a system that would change the automobile industry forever. The company's leaders understood that waste was one of the biggest problems in manufacturing. Waste did not just mean discarded materials, it included wasted time, effort, and movement. Every second an employee spent waiting for parts, every extra piece of material used unnecessarily, and every defective product that needed fixing all slowed down production and increased costs. The solution was not to work harder, but to work smarter. Instead of pushing large numbers of cars through the production line as quickly as possible, the company focused on eliminating anything that did not add value to the final product. This thinking led to the creation of what would later be called the Toyota production system. It was not just a set of rules, it was a completely new philosophy of manufacturing. Instead of relying on mass production alone, the system focused on flexibility, precision, and efficiency. The goal was to produce high-quality cars while using as few resources as possible. One of the most important ideas in this system was just-in-time manufacturing. Instead of stockpiling large amounts of parts and materials, which took up space and increased costs, the company ensured that parts arrived exactly when they were needed. This required careful coordination between suppliers, factories, and assembly lines. It also meant that every step in the process had to be precise, with no room for delays or errors. The result was a system that reduced waste and allowed the company to produce cars more efficiently than its competitors. Another key principle was jidoka, which meant that machines and workers could stop production if a problem was detected. In traditional manufacturing, production continued even if defects occurred, leading to large batches of faulty products that had to be fixed later. The company took a different approach. If something went wrong, the production line would stop immediately, and the problem would be solved before it could affect more cars. This ensured that quality was built into every step of the process, rather than being checked only at the end. These principles transformed the way the company operated. Instead of focusing solely on speed, it prioritized efficiency and reliability. Workers were encouraged to contribute ideas for improvement, creating a culture of continuous progress. The result was a system that not only reduced costs, but also led to higher quality vehicles that customers could trust. This revolutionary approach set the company apart from its competitors. While other manufacturers relied on massive production facilities and large inventories, the company's system allowed it to be more flexible and responsive to demand. When challenges arose, it could adapt quickly without being weighed down by excess inventory or inefficient processes. Over time, this way of thinking spread beyond automobiles. Companies in industries ranging from electronics to healthcare adopted these principles to improve their own production methods. By reinventing the way cars were built, the company not only secured its place in the global market, but also changed the future of manufacturing. What started as a necessity, finding a way to compete with larger, more established companies, became one of the most important innovations in industrial history. The lessons learned from this system continue to influence industries worldwide, proving that efficiency, quality, and continuous improvement are the keys to long-term success. After years of refining its production methods and learning from its early challenges, the company was finally ready to make its mark on the automobile industry. The lessons learned from the Toyota production system had given it an advantage in efficiency and quality, but it still needed a car that could prove its capabilities to the world. Until this point, it had been a company that was improving processes, but now it needed a product that could show what those processes were capable of. The moment of transformation came with the release of its first truly successful mass-produced car, a vehicle that would not only change the company's future, but also reshape the global automobile market. At the time, American and European automakers dominated the industry. Companies like Ford, General Motors, and Volkswagen had decades of experience producing cars on a large scale. They had strong reputations, loyal customers, and established supply chains. Japanese cars, on the other hand, were still relatively unknown outside of Japan. Many people viewed them as inferior to their Western counterparts. The challenge was not just to build a car, but to convince people that it was worth buying. The breakthrough came when the company introduced a car that combined affordability, fuel efficiency, and durability in a way that had not been seen before. Unlike many of the larger, more expensive American models, this car was designed with practicality in mind. It was built to last, easy to maintain, and offered excellent mileage at a time when fuel efficiency was becoming increasingly important. These qualities made it especially appealing to consumers who wanted a reliable vehicle without the high costs associated with Western brands. The impact was immediate. Sales grew quickly, first in Japan and then in international markets. People who had once doubted the quality of Japanese cars began to take notice. Drivers found that these cars required fewer repairs and lasted longer than many of the models they had previously owned. Mechanics saw fewer breakdowns, and word began to spread that the company's vehicles were not only affordable, but also incredibly well made. This success forced American and European automakers to pay attention. Until this point, they had not considered Japanese manufacturers to be serious competition. Now, they saw that a new player was entering the market with a different approach, one that emphasized quality and efficiency rather than sheer production volume. As demand grew, the company expanded its reach, opening production facilities outside of Japan to better serve international markets. It continued to refine its designs, improving each new model based on feedback from drivers and mechanics. This constant focus on improvement helped the company strengthen its reputation, earning the trust of consumers who had once been skeptical. The success of this first mass-produced car was more than just a business victory. It was proof that the company's approach to manufacturing worked. It demonstrated that efficiency, quality, and attention to detail could compete with even the most established brands. It showed that cars did not need to be expensive to be reliable. This moment was not just about selling more vehicles, it was about changing the way people thought about automobiles. From this point forward, the company was no longer an emerging manufacturer struggling to find its place. It had established itself as a global competitor, one that could challenge the biggest names in the industry. The journey from a small loom company to a major automotive force had been long and difficult. But with this breakthrough, it had finally arrived on the world stage. This success would lay the foundation for future innovations, proving that the company was not just a manufacturer, but a leader in shaping the future of transportation. Expanding into the American market was one of the biggest challenges the company had ever faced. By the time it attempted to enter the United States, the American automobile industry was already well established. Companies like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler dominated the market with cars that had been designed specifically for American roads, lifestyles, and preferences. These manufacturers had decades of experience, loyal customers, and massive production capabilities. The challenge for the Japanese company was not just selling cars in the United States, but proving that they were worth considering in a country that already had plenty of choices. The first attempt to break into the American market did not go as planned. The company introduced its early models with the hope that American consumers would be drawn to their affordability and efficiency. However, the response was underwhelming. The cars were small, underpowered, and lacked the comfort and features that American drivers expected. In Japan, compact and fuel-efficient cars made sense due to the country's narrow streets and high fuel costs. But in the United States, where gas was cheap and highways were wide, drivers preferred larger, more powerful vehicles. The early models were seen as too basic, and sales struggled as a result. Rather than giving up, the company carefully studied what had gone wrong. It listened to feedback from customers, dealers, and industry experts. It realized that simply exporting the same cars that worked in Japan was not enough. American consumers had different needs, and if the company wanted to succeed, it had to adapt. This shift in approach led to significant changes in design and marketing. The company began developing models that were better suited for the American market. They featured more powerful engines, larger interiors, and additional comfort features that American drivers valued. At the same time, the company did not abandon the qualities that had made its cars successful in Japan. It continued to emphasize reliability, fuel efficiency, and affordability, but it combined these strengths with features that would appeal specifically to American consumers. The breakthrough came when the company introduced a model that perfectly balanced these elements. It was a car that was affordable but did not feel cheap, reliable but not dull, and efficient without sacrificing performance. American consumers began to take notice. Mechanics reported fewer breakdowns and lower maintenance costs compared to domestic brands. Word spread that these cars were built to last, and people who had once been skeptical started considering them as a real alternative to American-made vehicles. As sales grew, the company expanded its presence in the United States. It built factories on American soil, hired local workers, and further tailored its models to meet the specific demands of the market. By manufacturing cars in the United States, it reduced costs, improved efficiency, and strengthened its relationship with American consumers. This journey from initial failure to market success was not just about selling cars. It was about understanding the importance of adaptation, listening to customers, and continuously improving based on real-world feedback. The company did not try to compete with American automakers by copying them. Instead, it found a way to offer something different, vehicles that combined efficiency, affordability, and durability with the size and power that American drivers wanted. The success in the United States was more than just a financial achievement. It was proof that the company could compete on a global scale, that it could go head-to-head with the biggest names in the industry, and not only survive, but thrive. What had started as a small loom company in Japan had now become a major force in the world's largest and most competitive automobile market. This victory was not just about selling cars, it was about changing perceptions, proving that Japanese engineering could stand alongside the best in the world. Every great company faces moments of crisis, and this one was no exception. For decades, it had built a reputation for reliability, efficiency, and quality. Customers trusted its cars to last longer, require fewer repairs, and provide an unmatched driving experience. But as the company grew, so did the challenges. The real test of its strength was not in its successes, but in how it responded when things went wrong. One of the most difficult periods in the company's history came when it was forced to issue major recalls. For years, it had been known for producing some of the most dependable cars in the world, but suddenly, reports surfaced of defects that raised serious safety concerns. Some cars were experiencing unintended acceleration, while others had braking issues. Customers who had once trusted the company without question now had doubts. The media covered the incidents extensively, and government regulators launched investigations. The company found itself under intense scrutiny, and its reputation was at risk. For any business, such a crisis could be devastating. Some companies try to deny problems, shift blame, or downplay issues to protect their image. But this company took a different approach. Instead of avoiding responsibility, it acknowledged the problems and took immediate action. It ordered large-scale recalls, even for issues that were not yet fully understood. Engineers worked tirelessly to identify the root causes of the defects, and once solutions were found, they were implemented as quickly as possible. Beyond fixing the technical problems, the company understood that the real issue was trust. Customers did not just buy its cars because of their features or price. They bought them because they believed in the brand. The company had to prove that it valued safety and integrity above all else. Executives made public statements taking full responsibility, and dealers worked directly with customers to ensure their concerns were addressed. The crisis was a turning point. It forced the company to examine its quality control processes more closely than ever before. It strengthened its internal safety measures, introduced stricter testing procedures, and refined its production system to prevent similar issues from occurring in the future. Despite the initial damage to its reputation, the company emerged stronger. Customers saw that it was willing to admit mistakes and take corrective action, which ultimately reinforced trust rather than destroying it. Sales rebounded, and within a few years, the company had not only recovered but continued to grow. What kept the company ahead during this period was its deep-rooted philosophy of continuous improvement. Challenges were not seen as failures, but as opportunities to refine its processes, strengthen its operations, and demonstrate its commitment to quality. It did not rely on past successes to carry it forward. It constantly worked to ensure that every vehicle leaving its factories met the highest standards. This ability to face adversity head-on and turn crises into moments of learning and growth is what set the company apart. It showed that true leadership is not about avoiding problems, but about confronting them with honesty, responsibility, and a determination to improve. The lessons learned from these difficult experiences became part of the company's legacy, shaping its approach to manufacturing, customer service, and corporate responsibility for years to come. As the world entered the late 20th century, concerns about fuel consumption and environmental impact began to grow. For decades, gasoline-powered cars had dominated the roads, but rising fuel costs and increasing pollution levels made it clear that a change was needed. Governments introduced stricter emission regulations, and consumers started looking for alternatives that would reduce their dependence on fossil fuels. While most automakers continued producing traditional vehicles, one company decided to take a different path. It saw an opportunity to lead a new era in transportation by developing a car that combined fuel efficiency with cutting-edge technology. This vision led to the birth of the Prius, the world's first mass-produced hybrid vehicle. At the time, the idea of a hybrid car was met with skepticism. Many experts doubted whether a vehicle powered by both a gasoline engine and an electric motor could be practical for everyday use. Consumers were unfamiliar with the technology, and there were concerns about performance, battery life, and overall reliability. The company faced an enormous challenge. It needed to convince the world that hybrid technology was not just a theoretical concept, but a real solution for the future of driving. The development of the Prius required years of research and experimentation. Engineers had to design a system that seamlessly integrated both power sources, ensuring that the car could switch between gasoline and electric modes without sacrificing performance. The biggest challenge was creating a battery that was powerful enough to support the electric motor while being compact and durable. After extensive testing and refinement, the company succeeded in building a hybrid system that was not only functional, but also efficient and practical for everyday drivers. When the Prius was first introduced, it was unlike anything else on the market. It offered significantly better fuel economy compared to conventional gasoline-powered cars and produced lower emissions. But even with these advantages, the company faced resistance. Many drivers were hesitant to switch to a new type of vehicle, and some critics questioned whether hybrid technology would ever become mainstream. Despite this, the company remained committed to its vision. It invested heavily in marketing and education, demonstrating the benefits of hybrid cars through real-world testing and data. Slowly, perceptions began to change. As fuel prices continued to rise, more consumers started to see the advantages of driving a car that required less gasoline. Governments around the world introduced incentives for fuel-efficient vehicles, making hybrids more appealing. The Prius gained popularity not just among environmentally conscious drivers, but also among everyday consumers looking to save money on fuel. The success of the Prius proved that hybrid technology was not just a temporary trend, but a viable long-term solution. Other automakers, initially skeptical, began developing their own hybrid models in response. The company had set a new standard for the industry, forcing competitors to follow its lead. It had not only introduced a new type of vehicle, but had also changed the way people thought about fuel efficiency and sustainability in transportation. Beyond the Prius, the company's commitment to environmental leadership became a core part of its long-term strategy. It expanded its hybrid lineup, introduced more fuel-efficient models, and continued investing in new technologies such as hydrogen fuel cells and fully electric vehicles. Instead of treating sustainability as a marketing tool, it integrated it into every aspect of its operations, from manufacturing processes to supply chain management. By leading the hybrid revolution, the company proved that innovation and environmental responsibility could go hand in hand. It showed that forward-thinking businesses could create solutions that benefit both consumers and the planet. The impact of this decision went far beyond just one car. It set the foundation for the future of mobility, pushing the entire automotive industry toward cleaner and more efficient transportation solutions. Becoming the world's most profitable automaker was not something that happened overnight. It was the result of decades of careful decision-making, precise execution, and a deep understanding of what customers valued most. While many companies focused on aggressive expansion or rapid production increases, this company took a different approach. It built its success on a foundation of efficiency, quality, and continuous improvement. Every decision was made with long-term sustainability in mind, ensuring that profitability was not just a short-term achievement, but a lasting advantage. One of the key strategies that led to industry dominance was the company's ability to manage costs without sacrificing quality. Many automakers struggled with balancing production expenses and vehicle reliability. Some companies focused on reducing costs by using cheaper materials, while others prioritized luxury and innovation at the expense of affordability. This company, however, found a way to control costs while maintaining the high quality that customers expected. Its production system allowed it to eliminate waste, streamline manufacturing, and ensure that every vehicle met strict standards. This approach kept expenses low while still delivering cars that were durable, efficient, and well-built. Another critical factor in surpassing industry giants like Ford, General Motors, and Volkswagen was the company's ability to adapt to changing market demands. While American and European automakers often relied on traditional business models, this company constantly evolved. It paid close attention to consumer preferences, fuel prices, and economic conditions. When demand shifted towards smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, it was already prepared with models that met these needs. When hybrid technology emerged, it was the first to embrace it on a large scale. It never waited for change to happen. It anticipated it and led the way. The company also understood the importance of global expansion. Instead of relying solely on its home market, it established production facilities around the world. This allowed it to reduce shipping costs, avoid import taxes, and better serve local customers. Factories were strategically placed in North America, Europe, and other key regions, ensuring that cars could be built closer to where they would be sold. This not only improved efficiency, but also strengthened relationships with international customers. Unlike some competitors that face difficulties in foreign markets, this company adapted its models and business practices to fit the needs of different regions. A major reason for its dominance was its commitment to innovation without unnecessary complexity. While some automakers introduced advanced technologies that added cost without clear benefits, this company focused on practical improvements. It refined engine efficiency, improved safety features, and enhanced driving comfort without overcomplicating its vehicles. Every innovation had a purpose, and every improvement was tested for real-world value. Customers trusted the brand because they knew they were getting cars that were thoughtfully designed and built to last. This balance between cost control, quality, and innovation created an unbeatable formula. Competitors often struggled with one of these elements, either sacrificing affordability for advanced technology or reducing costs at the expense of reliability. This company mastered all three, offering cars that were well-priced, long-lasting, and continuously improved. By consistently making smart strategic moves, it not only became the world's most profitable automaker, but also set a new standard for the entire industry. It proved that success was not about producing the most cars or spending the most on advertising. Instead, it was about building trust, staying ahead of trends, and refining every aspect of production to deliver the best possible vehicles at the best possible value. This philosophy ensured that profitability was not just a temporary success, but a lasting advantage that would keep the company at the top of the industry for years to come. Becoming the world's leading automaker brought incredible success, but it also introduced new challenges that required careful navigation. Managing operations in multiple countries, adapting to shifting political and economic landscapes, and maintaining ethical business practices on a global scale were not easy tasks. As the company expanded beyond its home market, it had to find ways to balance efficiency, cultural differences, and social responsibility, while ensuring that its values remained intact across all regions. One of the greatest challenges was managing an international workforce and supply chain. As the company established factories and offices in different countries, it had to work with employees from diverse backgrounds, each with their own ways of thinking and working. What worked in one country did not always work in another. Labor laws, workplace expectations, and cultural attitudes toward management varied widely. In some regions, strict hierarchies were the norm, while in others, collaborative decision-making was preferred. The company had to develop strategies that allowed it to maintain its core philosophy of efficiency and quality, while respecting the unique needs of its global workforce. The complexity of the supply chain also grew as the company expanded. Producing millions of vehicles each year required sourcing raw materials and components from suppliers around the world. Steel, aluminum, rubber, electronic parts, and countless other materials had to be delivered on time and at the right cost. Delays in one part of the supply chain could disrupt entire production schedules. Natural disasters, trade restrictions, and logistical issues all posed risks. The company had to build a system that was both flexible and resilient, ensuring that production could continue smoothly even when unexpected disruptions occurred. Beyond logistics, political and economic changes constantly shaped the company's operations. Trade agreements, tariffs, and regulatory policies could either open new opportunities or create obstacles overnight. In some countries, governments welcomed foreign investment, offering incentives for companies to set up manufacturing plants. In others, strict regulations made it difficult to operate. Economic downturns affected consumer demand, forcing the company to adjust pricing, production levels, and marketing strategies to stay competitive. Currency fluctuations also played a role, as shifting exchange rates could impact costs and profitability. The ability to anticipate and respond to these changes was essential in maintaining stability and long-term success. With global leadership came a responsibility that extended beyond business performance. As the world's largest automaker, the company had to set an example for ethical and sustainable practices. Consumers and governments expected it to operate with integrity, treating employees fairly, minimizing environmental impact, and ensuring that suppliers adhered to ethical labor practices. Scandals involving labor exploitation or environmental violations could damage trust and lead to financial losses. The company had to enforce strict guidelines across its global operations, ensuring that every aspect of production met high ethical standards. Sustainability also became a key responsibility. As concerns over climate change grew, the company had to take steps to reduce emissions, improve fuel efficiency, and invest in cleaner technologies. It was no longer enough to produce reliable cars. The company had to ensure that its entire production process, from raw materials to final assembly, was environmentally responsible. This required long-term investments in research and development, as well as collaboration with governments and environmental organizations to find innovative solutions for the future of transportation. Leading the global automobile industry was not just about selling the most cars or earning the highest profits. It was about managing complexity, adapting to change, and setting a standard for responsible business practices. The company's ability to balance efficiency, ethics, and resilience determined its place as an industry leader. While challenges would always exist, its success was built on the foundation of strategic planning, cultural awareness, and a commitment to doing business the right way. This approach ensured that its leadership was not just about dominance in the market, but also about shaping the future of the industry in a responsible and sustainable manner. For decades, the company had been a leader in fuel efficiency and reliability, pioneering hybrid technology with the introduction of the Prius. But as the world moved toward fully electric vehicles, it found itself behind new competitors that were already gaining momentum. Companies like Tesla had disrupted the industry by proving that electric cars could be both desirable and practical. While traditional automakers hesitated, these newcomers focused entirely on electric technology, pushing innovation forward at an unprecedented pace. For a company that had long dominated the global automobile market, this shift presented both a challenge and an opportunity. The company had not ignored electric vehicles, but its early focus remained on hybrids and hydrogen fuel cell technology. It believed that hybrids were a more immediate solution to reducing emissions, and that hydrogen-powered vehicles could eventually become a major alternative to gasoline. However, as consumer demand for fully electric vehicles grew, it became clear that ignoring battery-powered cars could put the company at risk of losing its competitive edge. Governments around the world introduced stricter emission regulations and set deadlines for phasing out gasoline-powered cars, forcing automakers to accelerate their electric vehicle strategies. While competitors had already launched multiple electric models, the company had to find a way to enter the market without falling too far behind. To catch up, it adopted a strategy that played to its strengths. Instead of rushing to release electric vehicles that might not meet its high standards, it invested heavily in battery research and manufacturing efficiency. It studied the weaknesses of existing electric cars, such as high production costs, limited driving range, and long charging times. By addressing these issues before launching its first mass-market electric models, the company aimed to offer cars that were not only competitive, but also superior in reliability and affordability. One of its key advantages was its experience in lean manufacturing and supply chain management. Unlike some competitors that faced production delays and cost overruns, The company applied its expertise and efficiency to streamline electric vehicle production. It also leveraged its global manufacturing network, ensuring that new electric models could be produced at scale without major disruptions. At the same time, it worked on securing long-term partnerships for battery development, recognizing that energy storage was the most critical component of electric vehicles. While catching up in the electric vehicle market was a priority, another major challenge lay ahead: the race toward autonomous driving. Self-driving technology promised to revolutionize transportation, offering safer and more efficient mobility solutions. However, developing autonomous systems required more than just building better cars. It involved advanced artificial intelligence, high-precision mapping, and real-world testing under countless driving conditions. Tech companies and new startups had entered the space, bringing software expertise that traditional automakers lacked. The company took a cautious but deliberate approach. Instead of making bold claims about fully autonomous cars before the technology was ready, it focused on gradual improvements in driver assistance systems. It developed advanced safety features that could assist with braking, steering, and lane keeping, making driving easier and reducing the risk of accidents. These technologies served as building blocks for more advanced automation in the future. Despite the challenges, the shift to electric and autonomous vehicles presented enormous opportunities. The company had a history of adapting to change and improving upon existing technologies. It had done so with hybrid vehicles when others doubted their potential, and now it was applying the same philosophy to electric and self-driving cars. By prioritizing reliability, efficiency, and safety, it aimed not only to compete with new players in the industry, but to redefine the future of mobility on its own terms. The transition was not just about keeping up with trends. It was about ensuring that the company remained a leader in innovation for generations to come. The story of this company is not just about building cars. It is about solving problems, embracing change, and finding ways to improve every step of the way. For startups and entrepreneurs, there are valuable lessons to be learned from its journey. Success did not come overnight. It was the result of patience, efficiency, and the ability to adapt when circumstances changed. These qualities are just as important today as they were when the company first started as a small loom manufacturer. One of the most important lessons is that innovation is not always about creating something completely new. Sometimes, the best ideas come from improving existing processes. When the company transitioned from textile machinery to automobiles, it did not abandon everything it had learned. Instead, it applied the same principles of efficiency and quality control to an entirely different industry. Startups often look for revolutionary breakthroughs, but lasting success is often built on continuous improvement rather than sudden transformation. Patience is another key factor. The company did not become a global leader in a few years. It took decades of refining its approach, learning from mistakes, and slowly building trust with customers. Many businesses fail because they expect instant results, but true success requires time. Entrepreneurs who focus on long-term growth instead of short-term gains are more likely to build something sustainable. Efficiency has always been at the heart of the company's philosophy. From the early days of loom production to the development of the Toyota production system, every process was designed to eliminate waste and maximize productivity. This mindset applies to any business. Whether it is manufacturing, technology, or services, companies that streamline their operations and focus on delivering value with minimal waste will always have a competitive edge. Adaptability is another lesson that stands out. The company faced countless challenges, from economic crises to shifts in consumer demand. Instead of resisting change, it embraced it. When the need for fuel efficiency grew, it introduced hybrid cars. When global markets demanded affordable and reliable vehicles, it refined its production methods to meet those expectations. Entrepreneurs must recognize that no business plan remains unchanged forever. The ability to pivot, adjust, and evolve is crucial for long-term success. Beyond these qualities, the company's journey highlights the power of trust and reputation. Customers remained loyal because they knew they could rely on its products. It focused on delivering quality, even when it meant slowing down production to fix problems. Startups often prioritize growth and expansion, but building a strong reputation should always come first. A business that earns the trust of its customers will find that success follows naturally. The principles that led to this company's success are not limited to the automobile industry. They apply to any business, large or small. Focus on solving real problems. Improve what already exists. Be patient and think long-term. Make efficiency a priority. Adapt to change rather than resist it. Above all, build something that people can trust. These are the lessons that transformed a small loom company into the world's most profitable automaker, and they are the same principles that will continue to shape the future of innovation. The future of the company is being shaped by some of the biggest changes the automobile industry has ever seen. The rise of electric vehicles, self-driving technology, and new transportation models is forcing every automaker to rethink its strategy. For a company that has built its success on efficiency, reliability, and continuous improvement, the challenge is to embrace these changes while staying true to the principles that made it great. Over the next decade, the company is expected to accelerate its shift toward electric and alternative energy vehicles. While it was once cautious about fully committing to battery-powered cars, it is now investing heavily in developing advanced electric models that can compete with industry leaders. Battery technology is a major focus, as improving energy storage and charging speeds will determine the success of future electric vehicles. At the same time, it continues to explore hydrogen fuel cells as a long-term alternative to gasoline, believing that multiple solutions will be needed to create a sustainable transportation system. Balancing tradition with modern demands is one of the biggest challenges ahead. The company has always been known for its disciplined manufacturing process and its ability to produce high-quality cars at an efficient cost. As new technologies are introduced, it must ensure that these innovations align with its core strengths. Advanced software, artificial intelligence, and automation are becoming critical in vehicle design, but the company will need to integrate these features without compromising the affordability and reliability that customers expect. Unlike some newer competitors that focus purely on cutting-edge technology, it must find a way to bring innovation to the mass market without making its vehicles too complex or expensive. The company's role in shaping the future of transportation goes beyond simply making cars. It is involved in designing mobility solutions that address global challenges such as traffic congestion, urbanization, and environmental sustainability. Ride-sharing, autonomous fleets, and smart infrastructure are all areas where it is investing resources. Instead of just selling vehicles, it is looking at how people will move in the future and creating solutions that make transportation more efficient and accessible. As governments introduce stricter regulations on emissions and fuel efficiency, the company will need to navigate a shifting landscape of policies and market expectations. Some regions are setting deadlines for banning gasoline cars altogether, while others are offering incentives for cleaner transportation options. The company's ability to adapt to these regulations while maintaining profitability will be critical in determining its success in the coming years. Despite these challenges, the company is well positioned to remain a global leader. Its experience in lean manufacturing, its reputation for quality, and its commitment to continuous improvement provide a strong foundation for future growth. While new players in the industry are bringing fresh ideas and competition, the company's ability to combine tradition with innovation gives it a unique advantage. The next decade will not be just about selling cars. It will be about redefining what mobility means. The company is preparing for a world where transportation is smarter, cleaner, and more efficient. By staying true to its core values while embracing new technologies, it is not only adapting to the future but helping to shape it. The road ahead is uncertain, but if history has shown anything, it is that this company knows how to turn challenges into opportunities and remain at the forefront of an evolving industry.